My beautiful neighbor invited me over for some bread, and I couldn't resist kissing her. I wrapped my arms around her waist. But the next second, she transformed into a giant snake demon. This was because the world had lost all order overnight. The entire world was without power. The sun wouldn't rise, and ancient bloodlines awakened within humans. Overnight, a person could transform into various monsters, perhaps even a world-shaking demon, or a god with absolute power. Just then, I returned home and saw a woman with disheveled hair standing behind the door. Her loose pajamas couldn't hide her curvaceous figure. She didn't look well, but rather exuded a captivating charm. She looked me up and down, then suddenly walked up to me, bent down slightly, and rubbed my head. "Little brother, you smell so good." Her pajamas were loose, and as she bent over, a large expanse of her snow-white skin was exposed before me, including a deep cleavage. I swallowed hard. Reflecting on his words, I felt a little suspicious. "Little brother, come over to my house for a meal." He didn't give me a chance to refuse. He grabbed my arm and dragged me into the house. "No need, sister. I'll just have instant noodles." I hurriedly waved my hand. "Oh, don't be so polite, sister. Eating those is unhealthy." He was ridiculously strong. I was dragged into the house like a chicken forced to sit at the table, waiting obediently. "Sister will cook for you." He gave a flirtatious laugh and went into the kitchen. I looked around under the dim lamp. The room was full of suspenders, lace, and fishtail skirts. I blushed. Something was wrong. The atmosphere was too strange. If I stayed any longer, something bad might happen. Before I could even get up, a shrill scream suddenly came from the kitchen. I was so frightened that I rushed over. But as soon as I reached the door, I froze like a log. "Fire! Fire!" He pointed at the stove, incoherent and terrified. But I stared intently at his lower body. It wasn't a human leg, but a long, thin snake tail. Its dark green scales gleamed blindingly in the flickering flames. Seemingly oblivious to its own transformation, it simply stared at the flames, trembling uncontrollably. A tremendous fear instantly engulfed me. My legs shook as if electrocuted. I wanted to run, but I was afraid of alerting him and dying. After a 2-second stalemate, I swallowed hard, steeled myself, and stepped forward. With a snap, I turned off the gas stove. "Thank you, little brother. You scared your sister to death," he exclaimed with relief. He then wrapped his cold snake tail around me, tightening it around my waist and legs. His pink tongue, forked like a snake's forked tongue, licked my cheek. I froze as if plunged into an ice cave. My beautiful neighbor, whom I'd been living with for almost a year, transformed into a snake in less than 2 minutes. Its pupils slowly widened into eerie vertical slits, and its 2 fangs bulged wildly, gleaming with a sharp, cold light. "Little brother, you smell so good." A chilling hissing sound came from his mouth, and thick saliva dripped down my face. His mouth gradually opened, clearly unable to contain itself. Cold sweat soaked my back. I was filled with regret. Suddenly, a strange voice exploded in my mind. A strong survival instinct made me instantly fixate on the spice bottle behind him, but grabbing it rashly would definitely enrage him. What should I do? I suddenly tilted my head back and forcefully kissed her. The older woman's pupils suddenly dilated, her face filled with confusion. Taking advantage of her dazed state, I reached behind her, grabbed the bottle of vinegar from the table, quickly unscrewed it, and poured it directly on her. It was just vinegar, but it felt like sulfuric acid on her. She let out a piercing scream. Her snake tail suddenly loosened, and her whole body trembled violently. I seized the opportunity to escape, scrambling out the door. Hearing the sounds of pots and pans shattering inside, I let out a long breath. There was no time to think. I had to get out of this building immediately. Just as I reached the bottom of the stairs, a dark figure blocked my way. It was a man covered in thick black hair, his muscles and veins bulging, his teeth bulging, and his eyes gleaming eerily in the darkness. A ghostly green monster lunged at me. I unleashed my fastest speed ever, sprinting towards the gate of the residential complex. The gate was tightly shut, and I yelled at the security guard from afar. "Grandpa, help! Open the gate." The guard stared at me blankly, as if he hadn't woken up yet. Then, he suddenly stood up, bone spikes sprouting from his body. With a shriek, he transformed into a skeleton and charged at me. Caught between a rock and a hard place, I stopped in despair. It's over. I took a deep breath, opened my phone, and quickly typed, "I've liked you for a long time," selecting several pretty girls from my contact list, and clicking send to all. After doing all this, I tossed my phone aside, closed my eyes, and opened my arms wide. I awaited death. The low growls of the monster and the clattering of the running skeletons seemed like a countdown to my own demise. That familiar voice echoed in my mind again. What was happening? I opened my eyes in confusion. The skeletons and monsters were less than 2 meters away from me. At the same time, a blazing light like a heavy sword cleaved through the darkness. The roar of an engine swept across the street, like the cry of a raging dragon. A motorcycle sped toward me at incredible speed. The rider was wearing a helmet, so I couldn't see his face, but it was easy to tell that he had a great physique. Even though I knew I was about to die, my attention was still drawn to the rider's exposed white legs. The motorcycle quickly rushed into the residential area, lifted its front, and flew out of the gate. In the instant of its fall, it crushed the skull drawn by the old man. Dark green liquid splattered everywhere. Then the rider gripped, with one leg supporting the bike, the other long leg swept high, drawing a perfect arc and accurately kicking the leaping monster. The rider straightened up with a push of his long leg and came to a steady stop. This series of actions was completed in one go, so fast that I hadn't even recovered yet. I was still staring blankly at the rider's white legs. The rider took off his helmet, shook the high ponytail behind him, and proudly tilted his head to look at me. But the next second, the corner of his mouth twitched. "How is it you?" I was also stunned for a moment, and quickly looked away. "Ming, you can do this too?" Ming's lips curled up slightly. "How was my fight just now?" I thought seriously. "My underwear is blue and white striped, with a little cat printed on it. It's quite cute." Ming gritted his teeth. "You guys deserve to die." Then Ming took me back to his house, sitting on the sofa and drinking some hot water. I finally felt my soul return to its body. My gaze shifted to a woman making a phone call by the window. Her short skirt accentuated her shapely figure, her legs slightly bent. The pose and the shape were quite striking. "Detected 3 demons in total. There are survivors on the scene. I don't have time to deal with this. Thank you." Yiming's voice was decisive and calm. As he hung up, Yiming held the phone screen up to me and said, "What's going on? This is a mass text message you sent. You're such a jerk." "How am I a jerk? I've never even touched a girl's hand." I looked aggrieved. "Isn't that a death sentence?" I thought. Sending this kind of message might get me more pretty girls to burn paper money for me. At the funeral, everyone dressed lightly. Maybe I can even sit up from my coffin. Yiming paused. I wanted to ask why there are demons in this world, but I didn't know how to start. Seeing my contemplation, Yiming smirked and pulled out a text message. "And this one? You sent this to?" I leaned closer and saw. The number was blank. The message only had 8 characters. "Demons in Lishi community. Rescue." No wonder Yiming came to rescue me. "It's not me." I shook my head decisively. "No, it's not you." "Then who is it?" Anonymous frowned. "Could it be my body? My identity will be known by others." A voice suddenly rang out from my head, both strange and familiar. Holy crap. I jumped up in fright. Startled. Anonymous was also startled. "What? Can't he hear me?" The voice in my head echoed softly. "Don't tell him I exist." I smiled awkwardly and quickly made up an excuse. I suddenly remembered I still have cash at home that I haven't taken out. "Well, I'm lucky to be alive." Anonymous rolled his eyes at me, got up, stretched, and revealed his slender waist in his short-sleeved shirt. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to take a shower. There's food in the fridge. Find it yourself." He then went into the bathroom, leaving me alone in the room. I looked at the closed door and slowly opened my mouth. "Now it's our turn to talk." "Right," I said. "Don't be so cold. If it weren't for me, you'd still be passionately kissing a beautiful snake demon." The voice in my head teased. "Don't interrupt. What exactly are you?" Simply put, everyone in this world has an ancient being within them that hasn't awakened before. But from today onwards, the world loses its order, and they are about to awaken. Overnight, you might become a snake demon, a dog demon, or even a demon god. It's like opening a blind box or drawing a card. It's all predetermined. The voice changed tone, and Is the little darling inside you powerful?" I remained silent. "You don't believe me?" "Believe me." I twitched my lips. I just couldn't accept that an ancient demon was spouting blind box gotcha. "I'm just a language I can create after reading your brain information. It's entirely dependent on your thoughts." He said aggrievedly. "You can read my brain?" I was shocked. "Then what about my browsing history?" "I'm not interested in that," he said helplessly. I chuckled dryly. "Then what kind of demon are you?" "I can't remember. I've been asleep for too long. I only vaguely remember the character. Xiao Tian, meaning heaven. How about you call me Little Tian?" "Why didn't you remember the character Wang Wang, meaning king?" "Then I could call you Little Turtle." "Are you very weak?" I said irritably. "If I were any stronger, I wouldn't need to run away now." Little Tian panicked. "No, you would have been poisoned by now. My ability is omniscience. I know everything. In everyone's mind except my name." "Okay." I was too lazy to argue. "Then can you sense what a demon inside someone is?" "He's a celestial master." Little Tian answered instantly. "What do celestial masters do?" "Exorcise demons." I was stunned. "Aren't we demons?" "Yes. So you mustn't let him find out. Otherwise we'll both die." "No. Isn't this like lambs to the slaughter?" "I have to go. I'm stupid. It's even more dangerous outside. Demons grow stronger by devouring, and going out is like a battle royale. We're 2. We will die if we go out." An image of a demon being kicked away flashed through my mind, and I shook my head in terror. Staying here would be suicide. I had to leave this dangerous woman no matter what. I didn't want to be kicked to death by her. I growled in a low voice. As soon as I finished speaking, the bathroom door clicked open. I turned my head and my eyes widened instantly. A woman wearing only a towel revealing her snow-white collarbone and shoulders, with a few glistening water droplets. Clinging to her delicate feet in slippers, was there alone. What are you saying to yourself? She asked, drying her hair. Suddenly, snapping back to reality, I said, your feet are so white. Oh, wait. Anonymous rolled her eyes at me. By the way, there's a monster where you live. Stay here for the next few days. I'll take care of this before you go back. I scratched my head. It's not appropriate for a lone man and woman to be alone like this, especially at our age. Aren't you afraid? What are you afraid of? I could kick 10 of you to death with one kick. Go. Take a shower. You sleep on the sofa. I nodded quickly, my gaze fixed on his long legs. I'll obey, I said. Didn't you say you were going to leave no matter what? Xiao Tian asked doubtfully. I cursed inwardly. You don't know anything. I'm just trying to keep him from suspecting anything. I pushed open the bathroom door, and a fragrant, warm breeze wafted out. So fragrant. Is this the smell of my stage name? That's the smell of shower gel. Xiao Tian's voice was full of helplessness. You're the one who smells really good. I groaned, jolted awake from a nightmare that felt like it had been cut in half. I was covered in sweat. I had just taken a sip of water when a sharp, stabbing pain shot through my abdomen, like countless knife points were being shoved into it. I shook myself violently. I endured the pain, turned on my phone's flashlight, and threw off the air conditioning blanket. I gasped for breath. I slept on the sofa in my underwear last night. My pants were soaked in blood, and the sofa and blankets were completely stained red. Holy crap, what is this? I exclaimed in shock. Don't panic. This is your body automatically expelling impurities under my bloodline's influence. Xiao Tian explained seriously. It's similar to menstruation, commonly known as antes. Period. You should call this your first period. I was utterly bewildered. I am a man. What kind of period is this? Turning into a monster is one thing, but why is it accompanied by antes period? A bedroom door opened. I was so frightened that I quickly shut my mouth and wrapped the blanket tightly around my lower body. The living room light came on, and a sleepy-eyed person in pajamas looked over. What's wrong? Why are you yelling? Maybe I had a nightmare. I forced a smile. A man frowned, scrutinizing my tightly clutched lower body. My face flushed slightly, revealing an angry expression. You weren't doing something filthy on my sofa, were you? Are you stupid? I've been making a living with my skills for years. I don't believe you at all. He stepped forward, about to pull the blanket away. Let me see. If you dare do that kind of thing in my house, I'll make sure you can never do it again. I exclaimed. I'm not wearing any clothes. I clutched the blanket tightly. If he finds out I'm on my period, how can I ever face anyone again? But this man, a Taoist priest, was far stronger than me. He gritted his teeth, suddenly turned, and yanked the blanket off. My entire body was instantly exposed before him. The man stared blankly at the crimson blood on my lower body, speechless. Then a thought flashed through my mind. I was hit in the abdomen by a monster yesterday, and I'm still bleeding. Why are you crying? You should have said so earlier. He seemed a little embarrassed. I'll take you to the hospital when it's light. He turned to look out the window. Why isn't it light yet? I'm already awake. He opened his phone and froze. Seeing his expression, I opened my phone too and was stunned. It was 8:24. But outside the window, it was still pitch black. The whole world was plunged into eternal night. A soft, mournful sound rang out. The world had lost power. This wasn't just a power outage. Energy would become disordered, and matter would be damaged. From this moment on, all of humanity's werewolf game and animal chess would begin. Ding! A phone notification interrupted the weather forecast said. A total solar eclipse, a rare event, would occur on the morning of July 2nd. Citizens were advised to minimize outdoor activities. It turned out to be a total solar eclipse, but then the power went out. A man sighed with relief, then glared at me. You're so badly injured. Get dressed and go to the hospital. Now. A cold sweat broke out on my back. Images of monsters devouring each other in the streets flashed through my mind. Is this going to kill me? I thought. The man's lips twitched. It's just a solar eclipse. You're a grown man. Why are you afraid of the dark? Stop talking nonsense. Watching him go to change. I was speechless. I wanted to say, I just had my period. Some hot water will do. But I couldn't bear the embarrassment. Helpless, under duress, I was dragged out of the house by someone. Each step towards the gate of the residential complex, trembling with fear. But contrary to my expectations, the street was indeed crowded. But none of them were kissing or cuddling. They were all excitedly looking at the sky. I frowned, cursing inwardly. Didn't you say all of humanity was awakening monsters? You lied to me again. Xiao Tian sneered. Don't rush. Let the bullets fly. The subway stopped running, so we had to take a taxi. I pretended to be carsick and got into the passenger seat, afraid of being too close to this master and being possessed. Looking out the window, the city was still brightly lit, the streets bustling with traffic. I suddenly realized that this world was completely different from my original too. In 2021, the world was exactly the same. It seemed no one knew that demons existed in this world. Big Shrewd, you finally discovered demons and celestial masters. These things are tightly sealed behind the bustling cities by the Celestial Master clan. They won't let anyone know. Maybe there were demons in your original 2021 too. Xiao Tian sneered lazily. I looked at a person in the back row who was resting with his eyes closed. Then why didn't he explain to me? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't even know the existence of celestial masters. He's already arranged with the organization to take you back to the heavenly spirit realm in 3 days for brainwashing. Xiao Tian yawned. That's the territory of the celestial masters of all generations. I was dumbfounded. Brainwashing? Me, a demon, going to the heavenly spirit realm? Isn't the spirit world like a lamb entering a wolf's den? Xiao Tian said calmly. Don't be afraid. Lon-Xian won't last 3 days. 20 minutes later, we got out of the car at the hospital. Just as we entered the gate, a loud bang suddenly came from the street behind us. Our taxi had crashed straight into a building and overturned. Among the gasoline spilled, on the ground was a pool of dark green liquid. I didn't have time to think much about it. I was restless in the waiting room. Boys get their periods. How do you test for this? On the 24th, I stood up shakily. Ming leaned close to my ear and whispered a warning. I brought you out today for business. If you dare to say anything out of line, even if you're not sick, I'll make sure you're hospitalized. I was terrified and nodded repeatedly. In the outpatient room, the doctor, a man in his 50s, pushed up his glasses. Young man, what's wrong? I stammered. I had a lot of bleeding from my lower body yesterday. The doctor sighed. Young people are energetic. That's a good thing. But there should be limits to playing around. I was dumbfounded. This old man's thought process was truly bizarre. The young man blushed and hurriedly waved his hands. Doctor, you misunderstood. He had been hit by something, which caused the bleeding. It must be an internal organ problem. The doctor coughed twice. Then we need to do an abdominal ultrasound and blood tests. We can't do blood tests. In my mind, Xiao Tian's voice was unprecedentedly panicked yet firm. I was startled and braced myself to ask, Doctor, can we not do blood tests? I understood. I glanced at him. I was afraid of the dark and afraid of blood tests. I was acting like a girl. I'm ashamed of you. I believed Xiao Tian's warning and immediately got up to leave. I'm not sick. Anonymous pulled me outside and roared, you're the one who's sick, and you're the one who's not sick either. Who told you to send that text message and get me into this mess? If something happens to you, I'm finished too. Seeing his angry expression, I hesitated. Compared to the unknown Xiao Tian, this real Taoist priest seemed even more terrifying. To avoid worrying him, I gave in. The nurse drew a small vial of blood from me. I smiled sweetly and stared at his half-white leg. Suddenly, a strong wave of dizziness hit me. I couldn't even stand up. After only 50 milliliters, I could only drink the sugar water the nurse brought me. In the break room of the laboratory, the nurse put down the anticoagulant tube and Dr. Mu's patient's blood sample. Dr. Mu picked up the blood sample, his eyes suddenly becoming greedy and crazed. He desperately sniffed the blood. It smells so good. Dr. Mu, are you all right? The nurse felt a chill run down her spine. Dr. Mu tilted his head back and drank the entire tube of blood in one gulp. The nurse was so frightened that she fell to the ground. Dr. Mu's face swelled up strangely, his skin slowly cracking, as if some monster was about to crawl out of his skin. Poor thing you, being played with by a woman. Xiao Tian sneered in his mind. Before he could retort, a shrill scream suddenly echoed throughout the floor. A person's face changed drastically, and their tone became extremely cold. Trouble's here. I'm going out to check. If you need anything, just run. I said, rushing out. Xiao Tian, what's going on outside? I screamed inwardly, but there was no response. Terrified screams echoed down the corridor. I pushed open the door, and countless people fled from my sight like madmen, their eyes filled with fear. Anonymous ran back and grabbed my hand tightly. Quick, let's go. What's going on? I followed him, completely bewildered. Suddenly, I turned around and saw a real demon. Its 3 or 4 meter long body crawled down the corridor. Its bark-like exterior, covered with torn human skin and white coats. It had a crocodile-like, blood-red maw, half a human body inside. When I saw the cherry hair tie in its hair, my pupils dilated. It was the nurse who had drawn my blood. Holy crap. I jumped in fright. How come there are monsters here too? One of the men frowned. How was I supposed to know? We don't encounter one for years at a time. Why are we seeing so many these days? You know how to exorcise monsters, right? Fight him. I yelled as I ran. Organization rules state that special abilities cannot be used in front of others during combat. Another man looked conflicted. My heart skipped a beat. It seemed Xiao Tian was right. The rules of this world were crumbling. I mingled with the frantically fleeing crowd. The hospital's first floor was packed. Elderly people were being pushed over, and children were wailing and crying for help. The noise gave me a headache. Damn it. I suddenly lost my balance and was tripped and fell to the ground, forced to let go of another man's hand. Just as I was about to get up, a bearded man in a hospital gown died. He clung to my clothes, staring at me with a fascination, murmuring, so fragrant, so fragrant. I jerked myself together and kicked him away. Seriously, officer? Even at this point, he's still thinking about gay stuff. I stood up and saw a man already swarming 10 meters away at the hospital entrance. He yelled at me. Okay, you go first. I desperately pushed my way to the entrance. Screams echoed from the back of the crowd. That monster had begun its slaughter. The security guard at the gate, not understanding the situation, only opened one pedestrian crossing, allowing a maximum of 2 people at a time. The entire hospital instantly transformed into a hell of despair. Men shouted and fought. Women cried. And some men even took advantage of the chaos to grope the women in front of them. Cries and curses mingled, and I was dizzy from the pushing and shoving. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out again. So fragrant, so fragrant. I glanced to the side and saw a little girl weaving through the crowd. Tears welling in her eyes, staring blankly at me. Hey, stop pushing. There's a child. I yelled, trying to pull her away. I watched helplessly as several pairs of feet trampled on him. Are you crazy? There's a child under your feet. But my shouts were instantly drowned out. Suddenly, the crowd fell silent. A man was thrown into the air, kicking wildly and clutching his own neck. Blood gushed from his 7 orifices as he crashed to the ground. The one lifting him up was the little girl, her body contorted in pain. She was still staring at me. It smells so good. No, wait. I looked around in horror. Suddenly, the dozen or so people around me stopped pushing and turned to look at me, whispering like ghosts. It smells so good. It smells so good. They reached out, mesmerized. I grabbed them. They're all crazy. I gritted my teeth and pushed them aside, rushing out the moment the door was fully open. The street was bustling with traffic, and passersby were recording with their phones. Anonymous Xiao Tian. I ran and shouted, but there was no response. I looked back, and my scalp tingled. A large group of people were chasing me like zombies, their hands outstretched. The most outrageous thing was that some of them, while running, had their skin tear open, fangs and bone spurs growing out, turning into giant monsters that swallowed the people around them whole. Then, the people around them acted like they hadn't seen anything and continued to chase me. Damn it. I said it was supposed to be a spiritual energy revival. How did it turn into a biohazard? Why is everyone chasing me? This mutation is spreading like a virus. The people taking pictures on the roadside changed their expressions. You've joined the group chasing me. The more you run, the more people there are. If you don't run, you'll be torn apart and eaten alive. I couldn't run anymore. My throat felt like it was stuffed with red-hot coal, and my legs felt like lead. Looking back, the people chasing me filled the entire street. Seemingly endless. The whole world wanted to devour me. Did you steal someone's money? Or grope someone's butt? Why are so many people chasing you? In my despair, Xiao Tian's voice exploded in my mind. I felt like I had grabbed a lifeline. Xiao Tian, you're finally out. Aren't you a full-time mom? What's going on? Xiao Tian sneered arrogantly. If it weren't for you dying, I'd die too. I really don't want to talk to you. Who told you to listen to that stinky woman and go get your blood drawn? Bro, I was wrong. If I ever talk to a woman again, I'll slap you. I screamed. Tell me how I'm going to survive, Xiao Tian said calmly. The more you run, the more people will chase you. You definitely need to find a secluded place. Hide and seek. Are you kidding me? In such a densely populated city, where is there no one? Xiao Tian frowned as he yawned at the subway station. Hey. Row of cars waited at the red light on the street. A driver lit a cigarette and idly scrolled through his phone. Suddenly, he felt an earthquake. The decorations in front of his car shook violently, and a rumbling noise pressed in from afar. Like dark clouds gathering, the driver frowned, rolled down the window, and leaned out, cigarette dangling from his lips. Looking towards the source of the noise, he saw a teenager running frantically in the distance, followed by a dark mass of people. The driver couldn't help but chuckle. What a huge green hat this is. Being chased and attacked. But the next second, his eyes widened. The cigarette fell to the ground, and he was completely stunned. Not only that, there were humans and indescribable monsters. A giant beast roared in the crowd, biting 4 or 5 people in one bite, wildly swinging, its tail like wings, and mouth full of teeth, bringing hell to reality. The driver hurriedly abandoned the car, screaming and running away. The end of the world. Yes, the subway is shut down, so there's no one here. So you're not entirely useless after all, I exclaimed in admiration. You've been surviving since yesterday, thanks to my reminders, okay? Xiao Tian said irritably. You fucking drew my blood and knocked me unconscious. I finally regained some strength, but it's all gone. I felt guilty and stammered, gritting my teeth and desperately moving towards the subway station. Huff, Xiao Tian. Were you chased and hacked to death in your past life? I've been running for my life ever since I met you. I panted and complained. Take your time. No rush. Even if you run fast, can you outrun those monsters behind you? Xiao Tian said leisurely. His words were like a bolt from the blue. I turned around and saw that the monsters behind me were just following me closely, not daring to charge at all. Why? I was utterly puzzled. Xiao Tian hesitated for a moment. I could only sense the awe in their minds. They wanted to eat me, yet they were afraid. Who knows what terrifying being was hidden within you? Reincarnated to save the world? I was feeling smug when Xiao Tian rolled his eyes. Hey, narcissism is fine, but don't call me trash in your mind. Before I knew it, we were at the subway station. There was only one security guard patrolling. I didn't have time to explain, so I fanned myself to him, waving away my sweat. Do I smell good? The security guard was stunned. Are you crazy? But the next second, his eyes glazed over, and he started muttering, so fragrant. Satisfied, I pushed him down. That's right, isn't it? Now what do we do? I took off my clothes, went to the bathroom sink to wash off the sweat, and hid. Xiao Tian directed me to run naked in the subway station. Tomorrow's headlines would be, I'll shoot you dead. Don't worry, tomorrow's headlines would be human extinction. Xiao Tian mocked. Without another word, I stripped naked and threw my clothes on the ground. I rolled over naked. looked up, and saw the security camera. I gave an awkward smile. The person watching the camera would probably be depressed for life. Okay, the monsters behind me roared and came. I turned around and saw the security guard lying on the ground, frantically licking my clothes. The monsters that followed immediately devoured him and started tearing at my clothes. They grabbed my clothes. Hurry up and wash, Xiao Tian reminded me, suppressing my nausea. As I rushed into the bathroom, squatted on the sink, quickly rinsed my hands, lathered them with hand soap, and dried myself. Okay, what's next? Xiao Tian asked expectantly, seeing the large green trash can by the door. I refused. You deliberately picking a fight, aren't you? You sweat a lot. Your body odor is strong. Even the trash can might not mask it, Xiao Tian said seriously. I opened the trash can, and a stench hit me. The walls were covered in years of grime. I'd rather die than go in. Loud footsteps echoed through the ground, mixed with screams of monsters. They found us. So be it, they're just in awe. But there's always a first demon. Xiao Tian's menacing tone sent a shiver down my spine. I lowered my head and tightly wrapped my private parts with toilet paper. What are you doing? Xiao Tian asked suspiciously, afraid of being infected. I'm still a virgin. I need to protect my weapon. Xiao Tian perfectly expressed my speechlessness. I gritted my teeth, closed my eyes, pinched my nose, and crawled into the trash can. The sticky grime made my stomach churn. I closed the lid, leaving a crack, partly to avoid suffocating, and partly to observe the situation outside. The footsteps were chaotic. Clearly, the demons had lost my scent and were very agitated. I heard several demons fighting each other for about 20 minutes. They were supposed to regain their human form and consciousness, Xiao Tian said. I frowned. How do you know I'm omniscient? Xiao Tian scoffed. I suddenly remembered something. I said. That human skin was rotten, yet it could still become human. It's just physical transformation after awakening. First destruction, then construction, just like your period. Xiao Tian explained. It's just that I'm too weak. I can only proceed gradually. Thump, 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 thump. Footsteps approached the restroom. Several 3 or 4 meter long monsters covered in scales and bone spurs crawled in. They patrolled the waiting area like crocodiles, their mouths full of sharp teeth, gleaming coldly. I peered through, peeking through the crack in the trash can. My heart was pounding in my chest. Don't come any closer. Don't come any closer. I mentally crossed myself. You're practically a string of prayer beads, Xiao Tian scoffed. And wouldn't you know it, a monster followed the trail of blood and slowly approached. It smelled the toilet paper I used to wipe myself and swallowed it whole, chewing it noisily. Those densely packed teeth sent chills down my spine. After finishing the paper, it was certain. I was searching through each stall. Finally, it turned and stared at the trash can by the door, our eyes meeting. That's it. I was still debating whether to run away when it roared with glee. Its blood-red belly wide open. The first monster to try this, its mouth facing the trash can, arrived. I watched helplessly as its enormous maw opened, countless beautiful legs flashing through my mind. Goodbye, 2021. Just then, an intensely brilliant golden light erupted from my left arm, attacking the entire trash can. Bang! Immediately following was the monster's piercing scream. Oh! My pupils constricted. A figure in a black trench coat appeared out of thin air, catching the lunging monster with a single hand. He was as steady as a mountain, grabbing the monster's head and slamming it against the wall without a word. Bang! 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 Dark green liquid spurted out. He forcefully smashed half the monster into the wall, twitching twice before becoming still. This horrific scene left me speechless. This man was more like a monster than a demon. The demons outside, hearing the commotion, rushed over and surrounded him. The man in the trench coat chuckled softly and slowly raised his right hand. Behind him, a black shadow rose like smoke. The demons roared and pounced on him from all directions. The man in the trench coat flipped his hand and slammed it down. In an instant, time seemed to freeze. The leaping demons hovered in midair. Even the scattered blood seemed to congeal. Bang, 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 like a terrifying force. The demons slammed down, brutally crushing them into the cracked floor. Cracks spread like a spider web. The demons thrashed about on the ground. Convulsions, vomiting blood, screams echoed. In an instant, this place transformed into a slaughterhouse for demons. The black mist behind the trench coat man exploded, transforming into countless jet black metal arrows that rained down on the monsters on the ground. Uffed, uffed, uffed. Dark green blood poured down, the arrows exploding inside their bodies, completely severing their life force. Then, the black mist, like a serpent, gathered back behind the trench coat man and vanished without a trace. He flicked his trench coat, slowly turned, and looked at the trash can where I was hiding. He wore a flowing black mask with no eyes, only a pair of sharp, stubble-covered lips. If I hadn't witnessed the massacre firsthand, I would have thought he was a homeless man. Without hesitation, the trench coat man yanked open the trash can lid, revealing me, naked inside, although I couldn't see his eyes. His twitching lips clearly showed he was stunned. I smiled awkwardly and showed him the toilet paper I was holding. I said, I came here to take a dump. Do you believe me? He froze, holding the lid. Obviously, I've messed with him. Nonsense, are you here? It was Yiming's voice. How did he find me? Isn't this suicide? I turned my head in horror to look outside the door. When I looked back, the man in the trench coat was gone. I breathed a sigh of relief. He came and went without a trace. The end of the world hasn't even come yet, and the superheroes are already impatient. Nonsense, are you still alive? Anonymous voices echoed in the subway station. I gritted my teeth. Anonymous, who was in the restroom, rushed over upon hearing the voice. He opened his arms wide as soon as he entered. You worry me to death, you. No. But when he saw me standing naked in the trash can, his words stopped abruptly, and his outstretched arms stiffened as he lowered them. Why isn't Yiming back yet? I cursed, too, tired to bother with him anymore. Xiao Tian sat down on the ground and looked towards the subway entrance. Speak of the devil. And Yiming arrived, carrying clothes. He rushed over, blushing, and turned away to hand me the clothes. It was a mess outside. I'd searched 3 streets to find them. I covered my private parts and went to change in the cubicle. Suddenly, Yiming's words made me stop in my tracks. Hey, why are you acting like a child? I asked. What did you see? Like a child? Yiming realized, his face turning even redder. No, I mean, why are you so pale? After I finished dressing, Yiming handed me a phone. I found it at the door. The screen is cracked. It must be yours. I took it with delight. At that moment, escaping was the priority. I threw away my clothes and phone. But as soon as I opened the phone, the news notification made me tremble. Alien invasion. A solar eclipse? Hell descending? Cold sweat poured down my back. Even if the apocalypse could stop the apocalypse in people's hearts, it couldn't save them. The immediate priority was to find a safe place. Xiao Tian solemnly reminded me. Demons have reverence in their hearts, but people only have desire. I took a deep breath. Let's go home first. A man with a grim face nodded. The two remained silent. Reaching the subway exit, I froze. This wasn't a street anymore. It was clearly a Syrian war zone. Cars were ablaze, and countless luxury cars looked like rotten cabbages. The cars overturned on their sides, and people scattered in all directions. Several cars floored their accelerators in an attempt to escape, but they underestimated the winged demons in the sky. Like vultures, they swooped down, grabbed the cars, and flew high into the air before violently dropping the families or couples inside, instantly turning them into mincemeat and devouring them. Various demons rampaged through the streets, stuffing anyone they caught into their mouths. Despair. How could we possibly survive? My voice trembled. Small scale, Xiao Tian said easily. These huge, terrifying demons are just mortals without minds. I've chosen to conceal your aura for you. To them, you're just air. But a celestial master's aura will make the demons wary. My confidence returned, and I turned to look at a hoarse, crying child on the street. But what about these people? Don't be so compassionate. This loss has returned the world to the law of the jungle. Xiao Tian sneered. I forced myself to be cold-blooded and patted Yiming's shoulder. Let's go quickly, before the demons notice. Yiming didn't move, staring intently at the child. Because of the crying, 3 or 4 demons were approaching the child. Are you crazy? There are so many demons around. Can you save them all by yourself? Ming didn't speak. He shook his arms, and 2 red lights bloomed. A short blade appeared out of thin air, and 2 red runes emerged on his fair thighs, each with its own unique charm. Don't ask, just ask. I'm a celestial master. He didn't even look at me, as if he knew what I was going to ask. Do you know about celestial masters in the heavenly spirit realm? I said calmly. A man was startled and looked at me with suspicion. I mimicked his tone. Don't ask, just ask. I'm all-knowing. Who wants to ask you? He lowered his body, his long, white legs pushing off forcefully, and he leaped 4 or 5 meters away. Under the dark sky, another man leaped and charged through the chaotic streets, like an agile cat, dodging abandoned cars and quickly approaching a crying child. The red runes on his thighs shone brightly in the darkness, drawing dazzling red lines. Wow, mommy. I'm so scared, the child cried with his eyes closed, completely unaware that 4 or 5 lion-like monsters had already approached. Seeing the lively child, the monsters roared excitedly and pounced on him from different directions. A crisp crack echoed in the air. One man arrived. Before he even landed, he stretched out his arms and stabbed the attacking monsters with both hands. Blood spurted out, and the 3 monsters instantly fell to the ground. Come with me. A girl crouched in front of a child, crying. I'm so scared. Mom. The boy didn't move, still sobbing. The girl, heartbroken, hugged her tightly, saying, Don't be afraid, sister will take you home. But the next second, her beautiful eyes widened suddenly, and a sharp pain shot through her back. I'm so scared. The boy kept repeating those words, but it was no longer crying. Instead, it sounded like the whispers of an evil spirit. His hands transformed into steel claws, piercing into the girl's back. Damn it, a level 1 demon. You're so unlucky. Xiao Tian said helplessly. They can maintain human form and fuse with their host. Watching the blood slowly soak the girl's back, I panicked. Suppressing my fear, I spotted a mop on the wall. Damn it, I'll risk it. I picked up the mop, gritted my teeth, and ran against the fleeing crowd, towards the center of the street where the most demons were. The surrounding demons seemed not to see me. I rushed to the boy's side, lifting the mop. I didn't notice at all that the moment I lifted it, the entire mop suddenly burst forth with dazzling golden light. I quickly helped the unconscious girl up and hurried away, still unable to resist thinking. World demons are nothing special. It's just a matter of one hit. Turn left and 200 meters ahead. There's a pharmacy on the second floor of the big shopping mall. Xiao Tian directed. I took off my shirt and tied it tightly to a woman's back to stop the bleeding. Luckily, she had a slim waist. If she were any heavier, the shirt wouldn't have been able to be tied. After finishing, I carried her on my back and ran like crazy towards the mall. As soon as I arrived at the mall, I froze on the spot. Even describing it as a bandit invasion would be an insult. Men, women, young and old were looting like madmen. Under the bright lights, every face etched with greed. It was the end of the world. They took whatever they wanted. Like locusts ravaging every floor, I swallowed hard, carefully helping someone up to the pharmacy on the second floor. But it was too late. The pharmacy was completely ransacked. Even the medicine for athlete's foot was gone. I couldn't help but curse, my eyes darting anxiously through the crowd. A shifty-looking boy emerged from a corner, lowering his voice to ask, "What medicine do you need?" I was overjoyed and quickly helped him onto a recliner, revealing the wound on his back. He'd been stabbed with a sharp weapon. "Did you have any disinfectant?" The boy with the blood bandage saw a man, whose eyes lit up, his gaze lewdly sweeping over the man's slender waist and white legs. "Wow, he's a real gem. He's badly injured. It'd be such a shame if he died." I nodded frantically. "Do you have medicine?" "Of course I do." The boy grinned. "But it took me a lot of effort to steal these medicines." My expression froze, and I pulled out my phone. "I know how much it costs. I'll give it to you." The boy held up 5 fingers. 50, right? "Okay, I'll transfer it to you." I opened my payment code, anxiously looking at the boy who was trying to get rid of a beggar. 5,000, the boy exclaimed dramatically. I was dumbfounded. "This isn't your medicine. You stole it." "What right do you have?" The boy's smile widened. His features contorted. "What right do you have? You're so naive. Because of this world. Because this world will never see the light of day. Because you don't have the medicine, you can only watch him suffer. He might even die." "Fine." I was furious. I punched the boy. After my physical transformation, I'm incredibly strong. One punch made his nose bleed. "You know this world. Believe me, I can kill you. Take the medicine." The boy staggered a few steps before regaining his balance. He touched his nose, looked at the crimson blood, and still smiled. "Kill me." "Yeah. Is there no order anymore?" "Kill me, and nobody will care." "The medicine on me?" "If you kill me, how will you find the medicine I hid? How will you save your precious woman?" I gritted my teeth, veins bulging on my arm. "Kill me, you coward." The boy wiped the blood and smiled disdainfully. I took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing my impatience and rage, and became humble. "Fine, I only have 2,000 yuan for living expenses. Can you sell me some bandages and hemostatic medicine?" The boy sneered. He wanted to refuse, but a glance at me lying unconscious on the chair made him lick his lips. 2,000 yuan isn't out of the question, but I have to apply the medicine for him personally. "Don't worry, I studied nursing, and I'm quite good at it." I gritted my teeth, staring intently at the boy's ugly face. My fist clenched and unclenched repeatedly. "Don't push your luck. In this apocalypse, no one can survive alone. Survive on your own. Give me the medicine, and I promise you won't be eaten by a demon." Slamming him to the ground. "Damn it. You still want to hit me? Fine, I'll play with you." The boy was startled and gritted his teeth, ready to punch me. But before he could throw a punch, his eyes froze. Sharp, iron-like feathers pierced through the glass, embedding themselves in the stainless steel shelves. 2 inches of glass shattered a second later, shards scattering all over me. I let out a long, shuddering breath, stood up, and shook off the glass shards. I looked into the distance. It was the household goods section. A 4-legged animal covered in feathers roared its feathers, instantly killing everyone around it. The boy slowly stood up, his face pale. The feathers weren't aimed at us. They just flew this way by accident. But if I had tackled it in time, that feather would probably have pierced his forehead. Actually, I didn't even realize what was happening until Xiao Tian reminded me. Why did it suddenly turn into a demon? There was no warning at all. I watched the demon, frantically tearing at the person I had just been arguing with. My eyes twitched involuntarily. It was probably caused by extreme emotions. Xiao Tian said calmly, "Let's go. Soon there won't be just one demon here." I nodded. I understood that the appearance of a demon would cause extreme fear and dissatisfaction in the surrounding area. Fear is also an emotion. I glanced at the trembling boy beside me and sighed. We were so close to the medicine, but we were still stopped by human nature. Xiao Tian was right. As it stands, the demon isn't a big threat to me. It's mainly people. What are you looking at? Don't think that just because you saved my life, I'll give you medicine. I didn't ask you to save me. The boy took a step back and hurriedly declared, looking like he was afraid I would try to extort him. I was expressionless and didn't even look at him. I picked up a boy and started to walk downstairs. In my mind, Xiao Tian had already given me the location of another pharmacy. The boy was stunned, clearly not understanding my actions. You're not going to save him? A discount is fine too. 2,000 it is, 2,000 it is. Without turning back or slowing down, I walked straight down the stairs. As I walked, I suddenly felt someone tugging at me from behind. I turned around impatiently, and it was the boy. He gritted his teeth and shoved a key into my hand. I'm calling you friends. For money, I said, and then he ran off. I was stunned and looked at the key in my hand. It was marked Basement 2, Section B, Warehouse 4. This meant he was giving me the place where the medicine was stored. I was completely confused. I finally understood why the old lady always pretended to leave when she was lowering prices. Was this a strategy of feigning indifference? No. Xiao Tian's voice rang out leisurely. He paused for a few seconds, as if thinking. This guy was no ordinary person. I had a premonition that he would either become your strongest assistant or your most troublesome enemy. Having a destination and hope, I didn't delay any longer because I could clearly sense the anonymous body temperature steadily decreasing. The second basement level must be the second basement floor. I quickly arrived at the second basement floor and found the fourth warehouse in Zone 1 according to the markings. Click. The key turned, and the lock opened immediately. I was overjoyed and quickly pushed open the door. A strong scent of floral water wafted out. It was more like a room than a warehouse. Inside, there was a bed, a wardrobe, and a small table. On the table were several stacks of books and a small lamp. On the wall were written several large characters: study hard and make money. Although simple, it was very clean. Clearly someone had lived there for a long time. The medicine I was desperately searching for was scattered on the floor, piled together with a bunch of fast food and daily necessities. Clearly, the boy had just moved in and hadn't had time to tidy up. Did he live here? No wonder he had the key. I put the medicine on the bed and quickly squatted down to search through the pile of medicine. There were too many medicines, piled together, making it difficult to find them. Xiao Tian suggested. Finally, I found the medicine I needed, holding the bandages and iodine. I glanced back at the girl lying on the bed. Her face suddenly flushed slightly. I used to dream of doing this, and now that I'm actually doing it, I'm a little shy. Xiao Tian teased. TSK, a small room, no outsiders, no surveillance, an unconscious girl, and dry. You, all right. You came to save him, you just couldn't help yourself and made a mistake that everyone makes at this age. If I woke up, I would forgive you. It would be so much better if you were a girl. I pursed my lips. Unfortunately, the girl in front of me was a beautiful girl who was more manly than a man. To suppress the restless impulse in my heart, I turned her over and looked at her shoulder blades. I couldn't help but gasp. The wound was deep. Flesh and blood had been torn out, and I could vaguely see the white bone beneath. The blood loss was minimal, almost non-existent. Just looking at it sent chills down my spine. If I hadn't rushed in quickly, his arms might have been ripped off. I shakily lifted his clothes. Perhaps the clothes were stuck to the flesh. The moment they tore, I could clearly feel his body instinctively tremble. The pain was palpable. I propped myself up with one hand and tried to apply medicine with the other, but seeing his snow-white back made my mouth dry. Especially when my hand touched his cool, smooth skin. My mind went blank, and I felt a wave of pain wash over me. My breathing became labored, as if my blood was engorged. The sensation was excruciating. I'm starting to admire the protagonists in novels there, always so composed and dignified when facing beautiful women. But I'm just an 18-year-old freshman in college, holding a girl's hand. I've never seen anything like this before. I quickly turned my head away, closed my eyes, and kept applying medicine while silently chanting, "Don't look, don't look." I have to hold back, but I couldn't see it. The instant I closed my eyes, golden light rose from my arm, like I was absorbing those monsters. But this time, the light flowed towards Yiming's wound. Soon, Yiming's wound healed at a visible speed. The light lasted for 2 or 3 seconds before dissipating, but a pale face began to regain its color, all of which I couldn't see. My mind was preoccupied with what to do about the bandages. They'd have to be wrapped around his clothes a few times. Wouldn't that touch his... Well, you know, my face showed embarrassment, but my heart was filled with excitement and anticipation. I helped the man up and wrapped the bandage around his clothes. Once, inadvertently. With a pained expression, I muttered, "I've done more than enough. There's really no other way. Consider this your reward." "What reward?" A familiar, cold voice rang out. I trembled with fear. Looking up, I saw a man staring intently at me. My face was filled with disbelief, and I stammered, "When did you wake up?" "I really didn't do anything. Otherwise, do you think you could still talk to me while dressed?" One of them rolled his eyes at me, pulled my hand out from under his clothes, lowered his head, and silently continued to wrap the remaining bandages. After a long while, he finally uttered 2 words, "Thank you." I stood there awkwardly and fearfully, my mind racing, trying to figure out how to explain. Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief. "It's all right. Consider it repaying your favor. But don't let your saintly heart kick in again next time." From the moment the sky stopped shining, There were no more pitiful or innocent people in the world. One of them didn't speak, but judging from his pensive expression, his heart must have been filled with conflict and pain. He looked up, and I frowned as I looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings. This was the basement of a shopping mall. The area above was probably full of monsters by now. I nodded. Actually, I still had many questions, but I knew asking them wouldn't be very helpful and would only be a waste of time. To be honest, living here is quite nice. Look, there's medicine, food, daily necessities, and I counted the scattered items on the floor and found it was surprisingly plentiful. Enough for Yiming and me to survive for 2 weeks. There's even a bed, right? Yiming said. Yes. He got up and straightened his clothes. I quickly waved my hands. No, I didn't mean that. But if you want. I can reluctantly agree. I agree. May. Yiming glared at me. You can stay here by yourself. I need to go back and find my organization. Can the world get back on track? I looked at the Celestial Master again. I nodded. All right, I'll come with you. I'll carry you. You don't need to. I can walk. May. Yiming pushed me aside and strode out, looking at his energetic appearance. I picked up the ointment I had just applied to him, looking puzzled. Is this how powerful it is? Bringing the dead back to life. I followed Mei Yiming back to the mall. Sure enough, just 10 minutes later, it was still old ladies grabbing vegetables, but now it had become a gathering of demons. Glass shards and broken planks were everywhere, chandeliers and colored lights were half hanging from the ceiling, flashing on and off, and flesh and entrails covered the ground. The stench of blood was comparable to a slaughterhouse. I suppressed my nausea and followed behind one of the men. He walked nonchalantly through the group of bitten demons, his face expressionless. If any foolish demon blocked his way, he'd plunge a knife into its forehead, then swiftly pull it out, and continue walking. As if nothing had happened, as if venting his frustration. Perhaps he didn't understand how the world his family had protected for generations had changed so drastically overnight. Nor could he understand why his kindness had only resulted in injuries. His home was quite far away. It would probably take 5 or 6 hours to walk back. I was wondering if I could still use ride-hailing apps in this apocalyptic world when I saw him walk towards an electric scooter, kick the corpses on it away, and raise his chin at me. Damn it, you want a ride? Why don't you order takeout? I showed him my phone. And believe it or not, even in this apocalyptic world, there really was a delivery guy. Stop talking nonsense, he said irritably. I happily ran over and got on the electric scooter. My hand naturally wrapped around one of her waists. She stiffened, her brows furrowing. She was about to curse, but hesitated and changed her mind, saying, "Call the police." I hugged her tightly, the scent of her hair filling my nostrils. I couldn't help but tease her. Brother, you're riding your little electric bike with me. The traffic police won't see this and give me a ticket, will they? She pursed her lips too, lazy to pay attention. I revved the bike to its highest speed, and the two of us quickly disappeared into the dark city. To be honest, this feeling was amazing. I rode straight home, heading into shopping malls, supermarkets, bathhouses, museums, and other large buildings. When I passed the pedestrian street, the stalls on both sides were already deserted, filled with the fragrant aroma of grilled skewers and teppanyaki. The whole street was packed with them. Yiming and I hadn't eaten for almost a day, and we had both done a lot of exercise. The smell of meat made us realize we were starving. My hands were full of meat skewers and fruit skewers, and my bag was stuffed full too. I would take a bite, and then stretch out my hand for Yiming, who was riding the bike, to take a bite. Every now and then, I would deliberately tease Yiming, deliberately shaking the bike to make him unable to hold on any longer. He was so angry he gritted his teeth, stopped the car, got out, and kicked me. On the streets teeming with demons, people huddled in corners or at home, trembling and praying desperately. Only these two were rampaging through the streets, bickering and laughing hysterically. They ate as they went, and an hour later they were home. This morning, when they left, people were gathered downstairs playing and waiting to see the eclipse, but now it was deserted. Only plastic bags floating helplessly in the sky. At the entrance to the complex, one of them threw down his car and ran upstairs. I followed, munching on my skewers. I was too focused on my barbecue to think about anything else either. Only Xiao Tian asked in confusion, "Wait a minute." I took a bite of lamb kidney, licked my mouth full of oil. Something was wrong. Monsters began to burst from people's bodies, plunging the world into panic. But there wasn't a single monster in this complex. If this could be explained by low probability, then why was there no one in this complex? Xiao Tian said quietly, his voice growing colder. I endured. I shivered and looked outside, but there were still quite a few rooms with lights on in the nearby buildings. What nonsense are you talking about? Aren't all the lights on? I don't see anyone. Maybe they're hiding, I said. But there wasn't a single living person in my perception range. Xiao Tian became serious. I threw away the bamboo skewer I had finished eating and dismissed it. You're overthinking it. Maybe it's because the world is ending and everyone's out looting supermarkets. Or maybe your perception is broken. You're so weak. How far can you perceive? Xiao Tian stopped talking and continued upstairs to Ming's house. As soon as I opened the door, I saw him holding a chip in his hand. He squeezed it with his fingers in it, shattered into tiny specks of powder, floating in the air and forming a transparent screen. I was shocked by this scene as soon as I entered. Is the Celestial Master clan so high-tech? Aren't they supposed to be using talismans and peachwood swords to fight demons? This is progress. Ming ignored me. My attention was entirely focused on the screen. The screen displayed the portraits of 9 people and various detailed information. I couldn't see them very clearly, but I could clearly see the portraits of 7 of them. The frame turned red. A man who had just opened the interface suddenly covered his mouth with a slender hand, tears streaming uncontrollably. I was stunned and rushed over. What happened? What did this mean? The man squatted down, tears streaming down his cheeks and shattering on the ground with a soft thud, just like his heart at that moment. I had never seen him so devastated. Even surrounded by demons, even hurt by the people he saved, even nearly dying. He always remained expressionless and handled it all with ease. But now, it was as if the last straw in his heart had been cruelly cut away. I was at a loss, quickly putting down my skewers and frantically trying to help him up. But before I could even touch him, he stood up on his own. He apologized for his outburst, wiping his face with a tissue and saying softly, his voice devoid of any emotion. But from his red eyes and clenched teeth, it was clear he was enduring immense pain. What's wrong? I asked softly, seeing he seemed much better, but the man ignored me, collapsing onto the sofa. His eyes vacant. It felt like all my strength had been drained away in that instant. I didn't know the reason, nor how to comfort her. I could only sit silently in the corner eating barbecue. I believed that a strong and resilient girl like her would heal her wounds herself. After some time, suddenly someone spoke. The sound of a heartbeat echoed in the room, as if speaking to me, yet also reminiscing about their past. I don't know how you know I'm a Taoist priest. I don't want to ask. I don't want to say much more about the Celestial Master clan living in another dimension, called the Celestial Spirit Realm. When I told them I'd take them to a better place to see a doctor, I was referring to the Celestial Spirit Realm. This world is filled with too many chaotic things, such as ghosts and demons, unclean things. Records of this have existed since ancient times. Ancient people wouldn't have made it up to scare themselves. The Celestial Spirit Realm exists in relation to this world. So, protecting the world became the lifelong mission of every Celestial Master. The Celestial Master clan's exorcism of demons and monsters was deeply praised. Later, with the changing times, everything changed. The advent of technology put the Celestial Masters in a difficult situation. The power of technology was too great. For example, flying and traveling thousands of miles a day required extremely high cultivation for a Celestial Master, while people only needed to sit on airplanes can easily reach the area. Meanwhile, due to the suppression of demons and monsters by the Celestial Masters of past dynasties, the few remaining dared only to appear at night. To subdue them, people couldn't see the process, so they psychologically felt the Celestial Masters were becoming increasingly useless. Without danger, there was no reverence. Later, people began adding the word liar after Celestial Masters, forcing them to step down and return to the Celestial Realm. But the Celestial Master clan never forgot their ancestral teachings, silently protecting this world in the darkness. No matter how many wounds they suffered, no matter how much blood splattered on their blades, every time the sky turned pale and the first ray of dawn shone upon them, all fatigue and pain vanished. These words were told to me by my master, Xinling. I was abandoned at birth in the grass by the street. My master, suffering from a terminal illness, saw me while patrolling this world. He broke the rules and brought me back to the Celestial Realm, sacrificing a great deal to save my life. The name Anonymous was given to me by him. It reflects my tragic past and his hope that I would achieve great things. He taught me so much, both in the cultivation of a Celestial Master and in how to conduct myself. Every time I see the word hero, his image immediately comes to mind. But he still died. The cause of death, as determined by the trial, was spying on and attempting to steal the forbidden power of the Celestial Realm. Who knows what that forbidden power was? We, the new generation of Celestial Masters, didn't believe that. Fabricated charge. But no one dared to investigate, and no one was willing to investigate. Even I, whom he treated like his own son, was implicated and dismissed from my post. The world is now under our generation's protection. In other words, I've taken over his mission and finally become him. But I don't feel the joy I imagined. This world is divided into thousands of regions by the Celestial Realm, each guarded by several people who patrol constantly to prevent any unforeseen events. My master guarded this region, and now it's under my command. I and 8 other Celestial Masters work together. Our friendship forged through life and death. I made 2 vows back then. I would protect this region from my master, and I would protect my comrades. But today the world is in chaos, and I've broken my first vow. But thinking about it, the whole world has fallen, and this isn't my responsibility. Yet, I simply can't understand. Why I've also broken my second vow. I listened silently, until the very end before I understood. The death of his master shattered his dreams of ideals. The death of his comrade shattered his hope for reality. And this bloody reality told him that after all these years, he was still the same little girl who helplessly watched her master die, unchanged in the slightest. Those he wanted to protect would still slip through his fingers like water. Only those who have experienced this pain and despair can understand. I hesitated, then finally said, "This isn't your fault. Perhaps too many powerful monsters have awakened on their side. Don't blame yourself too much." Anonymous remained silent, his eyes blankly staring at the wall. He had lost all hope. It was like a candle, with its wick pulled out. No matter what he did, never again will it burn so fiercely. I stood aside watching Yiming, as if watching the energetic and decisive Yiming of the past slowly die. I would never again see the girl who rode her motorcycle through the streets, kicking a monster away and saving me. Thinking this, I felt a void in my heart, as if someone had truly died silently. No, I suddenly stood up, walked to Yiming's side, grabbed his ponytail, and pulled him up in front of him. The grass was high and the ponytail was long. "Girl, I never give up. If you really care about them, go to where they lived. Find the monster that killed them, and avenge them." Instead of muttering and escaping reality here, Yiming was startled, but after hearing my words, a light seemed to shine in his eyes. But it quickly went out. He shook his head. I wanted to do it too, even if it meant disobeying orders and going crazy. I didn't even know their addresses. To prevent internal conflicts from leading to murder, we all signed confidentiality agreements, forbidding us from revealing personal information to members. I didn't even know their names, only their code names. As he spoke, one of them seemed to remember something and changed his tone. But our leader knew, because he was selected through a series of rounds of competition and was stronger and more disciplined. Hearing this, I had a sudden realization and a chill ran down my spine. I had just seen that 2 of the 9 people's avatars weren't red. Which 2 were still alive? One of them was stunned. He didn't understand what I was trying to say. One was me, and the other was the leader. Maybe it was because he was stronger, and luckily, I waited. My face instantly turned deathly pale. I interrupted Yiming. "Then everyone in our neighborhood should be dead." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Yiming frowned, clearly not understanding my disjointed words. He didn't know, but I knew very well, even to the point of fear. When we came back, Xiao Tian said he hadn't sensed any living people, but I hadn't paid much attention. But now, connecting it with the deaths of Yiming's 7 comrades, I felt a chill run down my spine. "Do you believe your regimental commander?" I asked tentatively. What did he mean by that? Yiming's expression was somewhat grim. We were both people we could trust with our backs. I gritted my teeth, and, without beating around the bush, directly stated my suspicions. "The regimental commander has very likely betrayed us." After hearing this, my beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. "How dare you say that?" I was speechless, unsure how to explain. Xiao Tian had told me that all the residents around us had disappeared. Now, connecting this to the events of the day, the image of that leader, driven by greed and taking advantage of the chaos, finding the local exorcists and killing them one by one based on their trust, naturally came to mind. And just then, Yiming was taken away because of me. The leader arrived at Yiming's place, only to find nothing but emptiness. In a fit of rage, he killed everyone around him. But how could I tell Yiming? Unless I revealed Xiao Tian's existence, that was absolutely impossible. If Yiming knew I was a demon, I'd be doomed. But I couldn't say anything either. What if my guess was right? Wouldn't Ming be in grave danger? I licked my lips, feeling anxious and impatient, and blurted out, "Why are you asking so many questions? Go ask the leader." 8 people died, 7 survived. Only 1 survived. Who else can you ask? It's much better than you looking so gloomy here. I sighed helplessly. But the rules of the heavenly spirit realm. During the battle, the celestial masters are not allowed to talk freely, unless the captain initiates contact. 2. Hell with the rules. They infuriate me. I never expected someone, usually so imposing, to be so stubborn. What kind of time is this for rules? What good are rules when monsters are eating people outside? What's the point of talking about rules? What kind of brain-dead celestial sword is this? There are so many demons outside. Why haven't I seen a single celestial master step forward? One of them lowered his head, pondered for a moment, then gritted his teeth and clicked on. The only one of the 8 people without a red border on the floating screen generated by the chip. It wasn't hard to guess that it was the captain. The captain's portrait didn't show his face, only his clean-cut buzz cut and mask covering his face revealed a pair of resolute and fierce eyes, like a wolf. Next to the portrait was the small print. Codename, Wolf-Inducing, District 16, Captain. After clicking the portrait, a chat interface appeared. Before one could even click the input box, a red reminder appeared on the system. No battle orders have been received. Any consequences of unauthorized contact will be borne by the individual. One of them let out a long breath, and the message was sent. Why did they all die? He could see his teammates die, so the squad leader must have seen the message too. One person waited silently, his whole body tense, his hands interlaced, supporting his chin. His face was unreadable. Was it anxiety, fear, or prayer? Watching him, he looked like a little simp waiting for a message from his crush. After waiting for over 10 minutes, I couldn't stand anymore. I was exhausted after a long day. Honestly, I just wanted a good night's sleep. Another person was still holding on. I reluctantly went to take a shower, feeling the warmth of the water flowing through my body. I felt a sense of spiritual return. I took a deep breath and slowly relaxed. You'd better not interfere in this matter. Xiao Tian's voice suddenly rang out, startling me. Bro, can you stop being so dramatic? Are you a monster? You, LL scare a mortal like me to death, Xiao Tian said. Seriously, I thought about it. Why did Xiao Tian's words carry a hint of worry? Regardless of whether the culprit was the leader or not, someone who could kill 7 exorcists in one day was definitely someone we couldn't afford to offend right now. He pondered for a moment and continued, it's at least a general level demon, and it'll only get stronger. Our main goal right now is to devour demons and grow stronger with your IQ. Getting involved with such a being would probably just mean certain death. I twitched my lips. What do you mean, my IQ? Why don't you just call yourself trash? Don't worry, I can tell what's important. Besides, I was just giving him some advice. I definitely can't go with him to see his revenge. You scared me half to death, Xiao Tian sighed, with your personality. I retorted a few times, but Xiao Tian didn't say anything more, so I had to give up. I went out and saw Yiming still waiting. I couldn't help but walk over. Why are you acting like a simp? You'll die before he comes back, whether he wants to or not. Why torture yourself? UV had a long day. Go take a shower and go to sleep. Yiming nodded solemnly. He was exhausted both physically and mentally. I watched him walk into the bathroom and shook my head. If only he could fawn over me like this someday. Do and dream about it. Xiao Tian's disdainful voice rang out. While he's showering, quickly go to his bedroom and steal some sanitary napkins. There, on the second shelf of the bedside table on the left. I was stunned. What kind of fetish is this? Besides, if you had this fetish, wouldn't you steal his used ones? You're really clever. Xiao Tian gritted his teeth, exasperated. You're menstruating now? Once a month. Every time for 30 days. I remember the pain that night and gasped. You're really unlucky to have this problem. He ran towards a bedroom. Fine. If I were like those mortal monsters who burst out of their bodies, you'd be dead by now, Xiao Tian snorted. Right. The overnight pad for leaks. If you don't know how to use it, I'll teach you. I suddenly opened my eyes on the sofa. It was that dream again. The headless man was wielding a giant axe, hacking at himself. I picked up my phone from the table and shone it on my face. Sure enough, a dark red tinge appeared under the sanitary napkin. Maybe I had a mental warning. This time I didn't panic. I kept thinking about that dream. What was that headless man? I asked myself, can I see your dream? Xiao Tian said. Oh, well, I'm too drowsy to dwell on a dream. I quickly got up to change my sanitary napkin. Luckily, Xiao Tian reminded me this time. Otherwise, there would be girls everywhere. This life is not easy. From a minor to a more serious one, I get anxious when anyone tells me to drink more hot water. I changed clothes and went back to the sofa, unable to help but sigh. Suddenly, in the light of my phone, I think I saw something flash by. I rubbed my eyes, but there was nothing. Outside the window, the lights of a few buildings in the distance were still on at 2 or 3 in the morning. I turned off the lights and went to sleep. Xiao Tian's voice rang out softly. I was startled. What was wrong? Xiao Tian's voice grew more serious. Something was coming. When I heard it, I was so frightened that my body trembled, just like when my grandparents told me when I was a child that a ghost had come. I quickly turned off my phone's light and shoved my hands and feet under the covers. I buried my head under the covers, barely daring to breathe. Everyone knows a blanket is a powerful barrier. No demon or monster can harm someone through it. I remained suffocated for a few seconds, then suddenly realized something was wrong. I possessed the ability to conceal my aura, an ability most demons couldn't sense. I, Yiming, am a celestial master. My aura only makes low-level demons wary and afraid to approach. But Yiming's house is on the 8th floor, so high up, anything floating outside is definitely not human. For a demon to dare approach, it means this demon is powerful and definitely targeting Yiming. Thinking this, I quickly threw off the covers, got up, and cautiously walked towards Yiming's bedroom. I gently opened the door, and as soon as I cracked it open, a chill ran down my spine. Yiming was on the bed, his chest rising and falling, clearly fast asleep. But beside him stood a black figure, looking down at him. As he looked, the figure slowly reached out a hand towards Yiming. Stop. I couldn't stand it anymore, and shouted. Rushing inside. To bolster my courage, I turned on my phone's flashlight. Illuminating the room, there stood a figure in a black cloak, his face buried in shadow. Yiming was also awakened. Opening his eyes, he saw the black figure beside the bed, and quickly sat up. A short blade flashed from an arm. Who was it? A magnetic laugh came from beneath the cloak. The person removed their hat, revealing a face with short hair, and a mask bearing a wolf totem, only revealing a pair of wild eyes. I felt a sense of familiarity for a moment, but before I could figure it out, a woman cried out in surprise and rushed forward to hug the man. "You're all right, thank goodness." It was indeed the leader. Lang smiled and rubbed her head. "I was worried something might have happened to you, so I came to check on you." I looked at the woman in the loose-fitting camisole nightgown, nestled in the arms of this strange man. Although I had no relation to Ming, I still felt uneasy. I could have hugged him, too, but unfortunately, I was naked at the time. I watched them, like long-lost lovers, recounting their experiences of losing the world, and I grew increasingly annoyed. Suddenly, I walked up to them and, without a word, punched Shadow Wolf in the face. Shadow Wolf was stunned, and Ming was also stunned. Ming hurriedly shouted, "Nonsense, what are you doing? He's the leader I was talking about." I sneered. "You're afraid something will happen to him? You're afraid he won't." Shadow Wolf's face was bright red from my punch. He rubbed his wound and looked impatiently at Ming. "Who is this guy? You've been pretending for so long. Stop pretending," I said with disdain. Hearing this, Shadow Wolf's expression changed, and he smiled sinisterly. I didn't sense anything. So this woman has a big shot at home. Since he'd been exposed, he stopped pretending and clenched his fists. Bone spurs appeared on the back of his hand, like sharp claws piercing towards Yiming. Everything happened too fast. Yiming hadn't even reacted yet, but perhaps he had. He just didn't want to believe it. His comrade in arms, who could entrust his life to each other, was now pointing a knife at him. What did those vows mean? What did the blood they shed together mean? He snapped back to reality. The past was the past, and the man before him would never be his comrade in arms again. He truly wanted to kill him. Yiming hurriedly got up, trying to roll over on the bed to dodge the attack, but as soon as he sat up, he felt a dull pain in the back of his neck, and his vision went black for a moment. He froze, lowering his body to stop his forward lunge. He knelt on the ground, the bone spur piercing the tiled floor like tofu. He looked up, his face filled with horror and disbelief at the scene before him. One of them had fainted. It wasn't him who did it. It was me. But the me now was completely different from the decadent boy I had just seen. Mysterious and ancient patterns appeared on my body, shining brightly. At the same time, my skin cracked open, like parched earth. What overflowed from the cracks was not blood, but an extremely brilliant golden light, as if it were real, filling the entire room. The entire room was as bright as day. My hair moved without wind, and I was surrounded by blazing halos. If I hadn't been wearing only my underwear, this scene would have been comparable to a god descending to earth. I took a step off the floor and sat down with a crackling sound, leaving spiderweb-like patterns. The wooden door behind me also seemed unable to withstand some kind of pressure and split in the middle with wood chips flying everywhere. I picked up the unconscious one and breathed a sigh of relief. Everything around me was radiating a golden light. "I'm ready to fight," I said calmly. "But there's more than one demoted monster around here, staring at us. Choose me." My voice was as loud as the sound of a bell, with an overwhelming pressure seemingly emanating from the deepest abyss. Lang knelt on the ground, large beads of sweat dripping from his forehead. He knelt because he simply couldn't withstand this pressure, let alone hit him. He hesitated, looking at me. This guy who had just been so pathetic and dejected. How could he be so strong? And how did he know someone of this status? But thinking about these questions now would undoubtedly be suicide. Lang wrinkled his nose, thinking he was lucky to be alive. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished from the spot. Only a dark light flashed out of the window and disappeared into the distance. As soon as Lang left, I felt like I'd lost my power. The golden light on my body dimmed instantly, and the cracks and runes disappeared. I put the guy back on the bed and collapsed onto it, staring at the ceiling, cold sweat pouring down, my body panting heavily. I heard Xiao Tian's angry and exasperated voice in my ears. The helpless voice said, "Feeling good now? Let's see how you live later. You're really shameless. You still have the nerve to say you won't help this woman. I told you to sleep with her, but you wouldn't. Damn it, now you gotten yourself into a mess." It turned out that when I got up to go to the bedroom, Xiao Tian had been trying to stop me, but I was preoccupied with my own thoughts and pretended not to hear. Then I realized that Lang was also relying on Xiao Tian. Lang hadn't betrayed us. He was already dead, or rather, half dead. Xiao Tian told me that there wasn't a trace of the Celestial Master's life force in Lang. He had been hollowed out and was just an empty shell. Something was parasitizing his body, which was why the system hadn't classified him as dead. In other words, there was a powerful entity that wanted to kill all the angels in this area. If it weren't for Ming, who accompanied me to the doctor today, is long dead. He killed the other 7, but couldn't find Yiming. He probably only just saw the message Yiming sent and realized he was home, so he couldn't wait to come and take his life. But he didn't expect that. There was someone hiding in Yiming's house. He thought that Yiming was the only one left in the whole neighborhood and wanted to make a move directly. So when he saw me suddenly barging in, he panicked. He is not weak and can sense every blade of grass and tree within several kilometers. How could he not sense me? but he is a killer by nature and remained calm in the face of danger. He tried to use the wolf skin to gain Yiming's trust, but he didn't expect that I would see through him so easily. He began to be wary of me. He came, but couldn't sense my true strength. In a panic, he attacked directly, thinking that killing this woman would complete his mission. But what he didn't expect was that I knocked him unconscious with a single chop to the neck. Before he could recover, he saw a terrifying aura erupt from my body. The pressure was so great that he couldn't even stand up. He couldn't sense or identify my strength, but he could see through my disguise at a glance. All these phenomena indicated that this was a hidden master. The existence within him was terrifying. He was afraid that he might not be able to defeat me. Moreover, as I said, he wasn't the only powerful monster that had awakened around us. They were all eyeing us, waiting to reap the benefits. It's best to retreat first. Go back and report to someone who has an invincible master hidden by his side. There are too many things he didn't expect. He didn't even expect that. At this moment, I was lying on the bed, still in shock, panting heavily. Damn, where did the power that just burst out of my body come from? That was too cool. Xiao Tian was exhausted. It was just an illusion. This wave is called playing dumb to eat the tiger. Oh no. I'm definitely going to get into trouble. At that time, I saw Yingling hugging someone and felt uncomfortable, but there was nothing I could do. After all, the two of them were good comrades in arms. While I had nothing to do with someone, I was thinking of not disturbing the two of them and just walked out of the bedroom. Suddenly, Xiao Tian's voice rang out, full of vigilance. This Yingling is not a Taoist master, to be precise, he said. The aura of the celestial master within him had completely dissipated. He was just a shell, a walking corpse. I was shocked, then inexplicably delighted. I walked up and punched Shadow Wolf in the face. That felt good, I thought. But on the surface, I maintained a serious and profound demeanor, coldly exposing Shadow Wolf's disguise. Actually, Xiao Tian hadn't seen through what was inside Shadow Wolf either. So I just said stop pretending, without revealing Shadow Wolf's true identity. If Shadow Wolf had just calmed down and kept up the act, I really wouldn't have been able to stop him. But Shadow Wolf panicked, mainly because he was facing the unknown me, and he was also flustered. When I saw Shadow Wolf make his move, I was completely dumbfounded. I only heard Xiao Tian shout in my mind, I don't want that woman. I slapped him on the back of the head, although I didn't understand why I should do it. In my panic, I still gently slapped Yiming. Moreover, I was slowly starting to rely on Xiao Tian. It was just a gentle slap, and he inexplicably fainted. I was startled myself. Of the 4 people in the room, only Xiao Tian was the calmest. You've always wanted to play dumb and show off, right? Here's your chance. Before I could react, a terrifying aura and pure golden light burst forth from my body. I was panicked at first, but when I saw that the aloof Shadow Wolf was kneeling in front of me, trembling and full of fear, I immediately got into character and started acting. I took a step forward and said that incredibly Chinibu line, but I thought it was very cool. Although the dialogue sounded cheesy, it was effective and scared the wolf away. But Xiao Tian knew very well that if the wolf had been so arrogant and dared to test the waters, a little probing would have revealed it was all a lie. Xiao Tian and I were filled with lingering fear. If the thing inside the wolf had been even a little bit smarter and thought things through, the outcome might have been different. That's it. We couldn't beat just one wolf, and now he's putting on a brave face. If he goes back, won't he find even more and stronger monsters to hunt me down? I realized belatedly. Xiao Tian retorted irritably, you still have the nerve to talk like that? Luckily, the thing inside the wolf is just as smart as you. Otherwise, we would both be dead already. His strength has been downgraded. Fortunately, he was scared by you and panicked for a moment and didn't release his power. Go all out. Otherwise, he could wipe you out with a flick of his finger. Otherwise, why do you think everyone in this whole neighborhood would just vanish in a thin air? Listening to Xiao Tian's words, I wanted to say something, but I opened my mouth and didn't dare. I warned you beforehand not to get involved in this woman's affairs, but you didn't listen and still wanted her to lick you. The only difference between you and a dog now is that you're walking upright. Xiao Tian got angrier, and his curses became increasingly harsh. I finally couldn't hold back and muttered under my breath, well, we can't just watch him die, can we? If I didn't know, that would be one thing, but he's right in front of me. Besides, didn't he save me too? Xiao Tian was furious. Saving you was his mission, his belief. He saved you to fulfill his own value. Even if he were killed by wolves, he would feel fulfilled. You're already struggling to survive, dealing with a bunch of powerful enemies, and he doesn't even like you. Is it worth it? I fell silent. I had to admit, Xiao Tian was right. Xiao Tian had been meticulously planning and doing everything in his power to keep me alive. Without Xiao Tian, I would have been gone long ago. And this is the apocalypse, full of dangers and survival of the fittest. I'm so weak. It's already a miracle I'm alive. If I had listened to Xiao Tian, turned off my phone, and gone to sleep on the sofa, there wouldn't have been any trouble. I would have gotten up normally tomorrow, gone to the street, ridden a bike, to get some food and followed Xiao Tian's instructions to find dead monsters to devour, gradually becoming stronger and gaining a foothold in this chaotic world. But now, this peaceful and safe life would be impossible. From now on, no matter where I go, a group of monsters of lower or higher levels will hunt me down. Until I die, I was filled with conflict and pain. Xiao Tian, I don't know if he was tired of scolding me or if he couldn't bear it. Stopped talking. After a few minutes, Xiao Tian finally sighed and got up. Should I leave alone like last time or take him with me? Choose one. I knew what Xiao Tian meant. This place is not safe to stay in. Let's go. The faster the better. Who knows if luring the wolf will lead to a surprise attack. I looked at Yiming on the bed, his breathing calm, and my heart pounded again. To be honest, there were two opportunities today. His long, white, slender, and delicate legs gleamed faintly in the darkness. I could reach out and touch them. I hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath, grabbed Yiming's wrist, and carried him on my back. Xiao Tian was helpless and used to it. Sure enough, before I left, I passed by the table and saw a bag of barbecue that had gone cold. I thought about it and took it. I didn't know if there was any food outside, so I should stock up first. I carried Yiming down the stairs. The whole building was silent, even more desolate than a graveyard. The thought of the entire building being filled with dead people sent chills down my spine, and I quickened my pace as I went downstairs. I asked, "Where are we going now?" Xiao Tian hesitated, unsure. The important thing was to get out of this area, preferably towards the outskirts or countryside. Cities are too densely populated. The chances of encountering monsters are much higher. I nodded, carrying Xiao Tian out of the residential area, walking along the deserted streets. The streetlights, still providing electricity, cast long shadows. After walking for a while, I realized I should find a vehicle. The key to the bike we rode back was missing. Xiao Tian had thrown it somewhere. I searched for electric bikes on the street, but they were all locked and parked. The shared bikes had stopped operating, and I couldn't find a single bike to ride. After walking the entire street, I was panting heavily, constantly wiping the sweat from my brow. Shopping with a woman was already exhausting, let alone carrying her on my back. I was walking for a while, then stopping, and at this rate, I probably wouldn't even leave this city, let alone this area, in 3 days. Even Xiao Tian couldn't stand it anymore. Hey, if you really like this woman, just sleep with her now, and then run. It's much faster than this. You're not only incredibly smart, but also a real ladies' man. I sighed deeply. Indeed, I really couldn't walk anymore. I wiped my sweat. My sleeves were soaked. After wiping my eyes, I glanced at the ground unintentionally and was immediately stunned. The streetlight behind me cast my shadow in front of me. But not far from my shadow was another small shadow. A woman on my back. The shadow overlapped with mine. Xiao Tian, there's no corpse here, so there shouldn't be any shadow. Whose shadow is this? The thought sent a chill down my spine. Ever since the world disappeared, my back has been colder than an air conditioner, making me stiffen. I turned my head and saw an empty street. There was nothing there. A gust of wind swept through the fallen leaves. There were only a few abandoned cars and a recycling bin. And it was far away. Could I be seeing things? Xiao Tian, is there someone next to us? I'm afraid of monsters resurrecting, or even ghosts. Xiao Tian was puzzled. What's wrong? There are only you and the woman on your back, within a 10-mile radius. I frowned. I trusted Xiao Tian. Since he said so, there must be no one around. But what was that shadow I just saw? I swallowed hard. When I looked at the ground again, there was no small shadow. Was it a hallucination? I didn't dare linger and continued walking forward with the woman on my back. I just wanted to find a car and get away from this dangerous place. Perhaps because of fear, I didn't know I was tired and started walking faster, but my vision was always. I glanced at the ground casually as I walked, and that little shadow reappeared. A chill ran down my spine. The shadow seemed to be getting longer. Something was following us and getting closer. My heart leaped into my throat. I cursed inwardly. Little Tian, are you sleepy? Look at the ground. Isn't there a shadow? Little Tian looked and was startled. Wait, I didn't detect anyone. I thought, oh no, this must be a ghost. I turned around, but the street was still empty. Looking at the air behind me, I seemed to see a disheveled, pale-faced woman with bloodshot eyes, covered in blood. I was startled. My own fantasy sent a chill down my spine. My voice trembled as I said, "Big brother, big sister, these days are tough. Let me be frank with you. I'm a demon. And this person I'm carrying is a Taoist priest. If you don't mess with us, we'll go our separate ways. But if you do, even if this Taoist priest doesn't cheat on me, a demon, can still bite you to death." I waited a moment, but heard no response. Only a gentle breeze. I forced myself to remain calm. Well, if you don't reply, I'll take that as a yes. We won't cause trouble. Then we'll leave. Don't follow us anymore. Saying this, I turned to leave. Actually, I wanted to run, but I was carrying someone on my back, my brother. But a faint, ethereal voice came from behind, like a ghost gripping my throat. I shuddered. Damn, am I really going to fight? I stiffly turned around, my brow furrowing. Only a little girl stood on the empty street, her eyes fixed on me. Her big, bright eyes and dusty little face looked cute and pitiful, but I only felt terrified. I put on a fierce expression. Believe it or not, I'll bite you to death. I'm a monster. A big monster. Then, in a panic, I asked, Brother Xiao Tian, don't play dead. Can you howl a couple of times? Xiao Tian answered, oh whoa, whoa. I rolled my eyes. I'd better run. I was about to turn and run when the little girl's voice came again. Brother, damn it. Even if you're hungry, you can't think about eating me. I'm a monster. I eat people too. We're the same. Okay, let's not get into the competition, I thought. But upon closer inspection, I realized the little girl's eyes were fixed on the now cold barbecue in my hand. I was taken aback and shook the barbecue in my hand. The little girl's eyes lit up, and she nodded obediently. I breathed a sigh of relief. You should have said so earlier. Times are changing. Even ghosts eat barbecue instead of meat. I threw the barbecue on the ground, pointed, and said, here, you go. Don't follow me. The little girl pursed her lips and nodded. I felt relieved and quickly carried one of them away. I quickened my pace, and the street corner was just ahead. One turn, and we'd be far away from the street. But out of curiosity, I couldn't help but look back. The street was empty, and the bag of barbecue on the ground had disappeared. I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed the child was a meticulous person. She grabbed her food and left. Brothers finished eating. A babyish voice suddenly came from in front of me. I jumped in fright, and the breath I'd just managed to exhale suddenly shot up again, almost choking me. I turned around and saw that little girl standing in front of me, her small hands holding an empty barbecue bag, her big, watery eyes staring at me expectantly. I was about to collapse. Holy crap, you look like a ghost. No, you are a ghost. But this huge bag of over 30 skewers would take me half a day to eat, and you've already finished it in less than 5 minutes. Are you some kind of abyss maw? I said, glancing back at the street behind me. There wasn't a single bamboo skewer. You ate too, little one. The girl lowered her head, pouted, and nodded slightly. Hungry. I looked miserable. What kind of weirdos do I encounter every day? Hungry my foot. Anyway, I don't have any food. Go find some yourself. I walked past the little girl and continued walking. My mind was already imagining the consequences of not getting her food. The little girl, driven by hunger, would eat me and someone else together. The more I thought about it, the more frightened I became. Even though my back and legs were starting to ache, I couldn't help but quicken my pace. But as I walked, I noticed that there was still a small shadow under the streetlights. I turned around. This time, the little girl didn't even try to hide. She stood directly behind me, looking at me with a pitiful expression. To be honest, if I had seen such a cute little girl on the street a few days ago, I would definitely feel sorry for the little girl who was all dirty and filthy. But how could I dare to do that now? I couldn't even tell if this guy was a ghost or a demon. Xiao Tian was also puzzled and confused. It was strange that I couldn't sense his presence. It was as if he could hide his aura. He wasn't an ordinary person. I thought to myself, if this thing isn't an ordinary person, then it's definitely not human. Whose 7-year-old can finish 30 skewers in 5 minutes? Swallowing even the skewers? I helplessly shouted at the little girl. Don't follow me. If you follow me again, I'll get angry and turn into a monster to eat you. The little girl stood still, not moving, and just stared at me expectantly. I felt a chill run down my spine from her stare and tightened my grip on Yiming's back. Then I took off running. I refused to believe that even the best little brat could outrun me. I'd outrun him, but after 10 minutes, I realized my mistake. I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't even walk. He was indeed well built. Over 1.65 meters tall and weighing less than 100 pounds. But that's 100 pounds. A living person. It's not easy to carry him this far. I was panting heavily. My throat felt like it was full of phlegm. I put Yiming on the curb, then sat down and held him. I didn't care about him. I just wanted to rest. I wasn't running very fast, but I took many shortcuts. I refused to believe that the kid could find his way back. The next second, my heart sank. Brother, are you tired? Came a childish voice. The cuter the song was, the scarier it sounded to me. A little girl, who seemed to appear out of nowhere, squatted in front of me, panting. I was too tired to be afraid anymore, breathing heavily, looking utterly hopeless. I was an idiot. I should have known you'd appear. Racing you was just asking for trouble. Xiao Tian chuckled. He'd improved. At least he knew how to recognize himself. I ignored him, but a glance made me panic again. The little girl was squatting on the ground, but her eyes started to linger on the meter-long object leaning against my shoulder, her chin twitching. She was clearly swallowing. I quickly made a stop gesture, pointing in front of her. Don't eat this. This is for your older sister-brother later. Xiao Tian couldn't help but laugh. Would you dare use that kind of thing on me? I can't be bothered with him. The most important thing right now is to distract this little girl. Who knows what this child is? What if I can't resist eating Yiming? then I'll be next. It's one problem after another. Troubles are coming one after another. Come on, brother will take you to find something delicious. I'm not in the mood to write anymore, so I reluctantly picked up Yiming's grandfather again. The little girl smiled and jumped up happily, just like when she heard her father was going to take her to the amusement park. As soon as I got up, the little girl naturally took one of my fingers. I was stunned, but remembering my experience of taking care of children when I was a child, I didn't refuse. This was a child expressing trust. The most direct way was that the little girl's hands were warm, not as cold and chilly as I had imagined. So I frowned. This child wasn't a ghost. She really was a person. I lowered my head and tried to keep my voice very gentle as I tentatively asked, "Little sister, what's your name?" The little girl was kicking a small lion as she walked and ate. I nodded. True to her name. I asked again, "Then why are you out here alone? Where's your mother?" The little girl looked up and grinned cutely. "Mom, I've eaten you." I shuddered and quickly shut up. The more I talked, the more frightened I became. Well, this child isn't really suitable to be human. Let's just treat her as a ghost for now. After all, who says ghosts don't have body temperature? On the long, dark street, under the warm streetlights, I carried a sleeping girl on my back and held a cute little girl's hand. The three of us walked in the night, looking at the navigation on my phone, slowly heading towards the outskirts of the city. Fortunately, there were still a few convenience stores and restaurants on several small streets that hadn't been looted. We ate at each store, grabbing bread, bento boxes, and instant noodles, without even heating them up. Just stuffing ourselves. The restaurants and noodle shops were empty, with no food. Only ingredients in the freezer. We ate without being picky, grabbing raw meat and gnawing on it. While he was happily munching on popsicles, he ate up the entire street and was still complaining of hunger. I, on the other hand, was exhausted and sleepy, my eyes barely open. Carrying a name on my back, I moved step by step, like a walking corpse. I wanted to just lie down and sleep, but I didn't dare, because there was a little monster next to me who was like a ticking time bomb. Sometimes I wondered if I was being too compassionate. I was indeed tired, and Xiao Tian's words kept coming to mind. Why not just give the stage name away while it's hot? You can still live, and even if you die, it won't be a loss. Carrying the stage name all the time restricted my movement, and my chances of survival decreased even more. But thinking about it was just a thought. I didn't dare to do it, nor did I want to. The apocalypse had only just begun, and I wanted to be human a little longer. This place is strange. Xiao Tian's voice suddenly interrupted my reverie. What's wrong? I asked, forcing my eyes open and trying to stay awake. Xiao Tian said in confusion. Logically, in a world in chaos, there should be monsters everywhere. But we haven't seen a single monster, or a single person, along the way. If the entire neighborhood died because of attracting wolves, then why? Are there no monsters here? Isn't that good? Besides, there's one right next to us, I said, looking down. Looking at the dazed Xiao Tian beside me, who was clutching a piece of raw meat and gnawing on it, I felt even more frustrated. This kid was strange. I couldn't sense him, and there wasn't a single demon nearby, yet he was the only one here. In short, this whole area was suspicious. I needed to be more careful. As he spoke, he couldn't help but sigh. I thought the world's disorder and the awakening of demons would at most result in chaos, indiscriminate slaughter, and mutual devouring. It seems I underestimated them. Some demons have already begun to plot and prepare to play chess. Play chess? I was taken aback. You don't need to consider that. You're lucky to have survived. Since someone wants to complete this game of chess, then will be the deepest pieces hidden on this chessboard, Xiao Tian said calmly, a hint of anticipation in his voice. I'm too lazy to think about these things. I just want to find a place to sleep. Looking at the navigation, there was a town a few hundred meters ahead. I'm not going any further. Even if I'm being chased, I have to sleep. I looked up at the small houses faintly visible in the darkness, a small sense of anticipation rekindling within me. I patiently walked for another 10 minutes, and finally reached the small bridge at the town entrance. Once across the bridge, there were houses everywhere. I was unusually happy. There probably wasn't anyone in the town. I found a house to sleep in. I was really exhausted. I couldn't help it, but just as I thought that, Xiao Tian's words made my heart skip a beat. No, there are people in this town, and there's a demon here. I shook my head. Whatever, I thought. Even if there's a demon, I'll sleep in his arms. With that, I carried one of the demons on my back, led the others by the hand, and dragged my weary body across the bridge. But before I'd taken 2 steps, a loud shout shattered the silence of the night. I was terrified. My heart skipped a beat. I stared blankly at the man who emerged from the woods by the roadside. He was smoking, holding a flashlight, and shining it at me. Having come from the city, I hated the smell of smoke, and didn't say anything, just nodded. The man flicked his finger. He flicked his cigarette ash, and asked again if I was infected. I was taken aback. He was quite vigilant. I quickly pulled out my phone to show him my green health code. He clicked his tongue impatiently. I asked, "Are you a monster?" I understood, and quickly shook my head. No, if I were a monster, how could I have escaped here? I was relieved that the monster inside me was the clerical kind, and wouldn't break free. He nodded, and shone his flashlight on me again. I ate and ate, my eyes stinging from the light. I bared my teeth. If I hadn't been holding him, I probably would have pounced on his face and started biting him. His eyes swept over me again, and he saw someone on my back. His eyes lit up. The sight of a woman's white legs reflecting the flashlight beam made the man swallow hard. And what about the two of them? What's wrong with the woman? I quickly explained. This little girl is my sister. She's a bit naive. The one on my back is my girlfriend. She's too tired and has fallen asleep. Don't worry, we're not monsters. The city is too dangerous. We just wanted to find a place to stay for the night. The man sneered. You city people, you always look down on us country folk. Now that something's happened, you all flock to the countryside. You're not the first one here. But he still waved his hand and said, come with me. I didn't say anything and quickly followed the man. His flashlight shone on the road. The town actually had streetlights, but none of them were working, probably because of the lack of sunlight for 2 nights and a day, resulting in a power outage. A few barks came from afar. The grass was full of insect chirps, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. The tranquil and peaceful environment allowed me to slowly lower my guard, and I became increasingly sleepy. My eyes were glazed. As I walked along, suddenly, the burly man in front of me stopped and pointed to a 2-story bungalow. You can stay there for now. There's an empty room on the 2nd floor. Keep your voice down. The people living around here are all from the city, just like you. I nodded gratefully and thanked him. The man smiled and said, no need to thank me. Life isn't easy these days. He then turned back, a cigarette dangling from his lips. You can go in and stay here. I have to go back to patrol. I waved to him. Thank you for your hard work, uncle. You're so kind. I watched the man's figure gradually disappear into the darkness, feeling touched. Afterward, I couldn't wait to walk towards the bungalow. Finally, I could sleep, but I didn't see the burly man. Every 3 steps I turned back, staring at a woman's thigh and muttering, this guy is really poor. He doesn't have any luggage. But that girl on his back is really something. TSK. I can enjoy myself now. I quietly walked into the bungalow. Sure enough, there were several rooms on the 1st floor. All the doors were tightly locked. I went upstairs and saw an open room. I was overjoyed. Using the light from my phone, I laid a girl on the bed, then rubbed my aching shoulders and spine. I looked at the girl and said, take off your shoes and go to sleep, brother. I'm not sleepy. I'm just hungry. You, sleep. She climbed onto a bamboo chair in the room, rocking back and forth like she was in a cradle. I had no choice but to go with her. Maybe ghosts don't sleep. I placed my hand under her pert little nose in the light and felt her breath before I felt relieved. I looked at her fair face, smooth and shiny, her long eyelashes tightly closed, thick like small fans, her thin lips a little dry. Even when she was unconscious, she was so beautiful, but I was too tired, and I had no evil thoughts left. I smiled bitterly and fell asleep. I watched her face slowly approach my side. I could see her fair skin. The tiny blood vessels beneath her skin and the fine downy hairs on her cheeks gave off a lingering, sweet fragrance that swirled in the air. Her lips were slightly upturned, soft and delicate like rose petals. I licked my lips, feeling a little awkward. This wasn't quite right. Ming didn't say anything, but instead wrapped his arms around my neck. Nonsense. Fuck you. Nonsense. Brother. Brother. Wake up. 2 different voices rang in my ears, as if someone was shaking my body. I suddenly opened my eyes, a strong sense of suffocation washing over me like a tidal wave. I retched and sat up, only to find a red thread tied around my neck. The red thread, like a laser, pierced through the ceiling, glowing crimson in the darkness, falling straight down and tightly wrapping around my neck. Beside me, a dazed man shook me anxiously. I was at a loss. The red thread even seemed to be alive, wriggling. The red thread tightened, and my vision blurred. My brain throbbed with pain from lack of oxygen, and I felt as if something inside me was being sucked away by it. I pulled desperately at the thread, but whether it was because I was exhausted or the thread was too strong, it wouldn't budge despite my best efforts. The thin thread beside me watched me gag in pain. In desperation, I bit down with my delicate white teeth. With a snap, the thread broke. I gasped for breath, coughing, before my brain could recover. I turned my head and saw another person next to me with a red thread around their neck. The person was groaning in pain with their eyes closed. The red thread around their neck was tightening. I quickly picked up the person and bit down on the thread. The person obeyed and bit down, breaking the thread instantly. The person coughed a few times, clutched their neck, and then opened their eyes. It seems suffocation jolted him awake from his coma. The first thing he saw when he opened his eyes was me beside him. He glanced around and quickly clutched his chest. What are you trying to do to me? You're trying to pinch me, I said helplessly, pointing to Chichi beside me. Yes. We've done what we needed to do. Look, this is our daughter. She's 7 years old this year. Ming could tell from the teasing tone in my words that he sat on the bed and calmed down for 3 minutes. I believe those 3 minutes must have been very difficult for him, because the last thing he saw when he was unconscious was Lang pointing his claws at the person he once trusted most, drawing his sword. That feeling must have been very painful. I thought he was going to cry, and I was prepared to comfort him. But unexpectedly, Ming just sighed softly. You can't see into someone's heart. He looked around with some doubt. We weren't killed by Lang. I quickly made up a reason. He didn't actually betray us. He was just attacked by a stronger demon. He pointed his claws at you. You must still be conscious and have a conflict with the existence within you. That's why I had the opportunity to carry you all the way to this town. Upon hearing this, Yiming's eyes lit up. Are you sure he was possessed? Are you sure? I nodded. One smiled, with relief. I knew it. Every celestial master shoulders a mission and never backs down. How could they change their ways? I knew why he smiled. Because the wolf-inducing didn't betray us, which means their friendship is still there, and the celestial master's faith is still there. He smiled and ruffled my hair. Carrying me on your back must have been tough, right? You've worked hard. He chuckled. It's all right. Mainly because my flat chest reduces the burden a lot. Another casually tapped my forehead and glared at me. You're really asking for trouble. I just praised you a couple of times, and you can't hold back anymore. Only then did he notice Chichi standing by the bed. What a cute little sister, he said, reaching out to touch Chichi's face. Chichi bit him without hesitation. One gasped in pain and quickly pulled his hand back. Why are you biting people like that? I smiled gleefully. I picked her up from the roadside, and she's been clinging to me. One smiled helplessly and suddenly remembered something. What happened to my neck? And that suffocating feeling. He looked at me and Chichi, startled. You two also have marks on your necks. What happened? I then remembered the red thread. It was mainly because one of them woke up, and I was also a little excited. Putting that aside, I rushed to the window to look and was immediately stunned. Red threads were pouring down from the dark sky, piercing through the walls and windows. Without a doubt, the ends of those red threads were wrapped around someone's neck. What was going on? Good heavens, this scene was truly shocking. I asked Xiao Tian, dumbfounded. You have the nerve to ask. I called you for ages, and you didn't wake up. Damn, I had a wet dream. Remembering the dream, I couldn't help but turn around and glance at someone. My face instantly turned red. Wasn't I just too tired and sleepy? What is this? Xiao Tian said, it's my waist. When I came here, I said it was a back brace, not a lying brace. Was he sleeping in his arms? The opportunity had arrived. I boasted back then because I was too tired to care about anything. Now that I've rested enough, the moment I heard waist still tied, a chill ran down my spine. A single red thread tied to a life. How many lives are represented by these countless red threads? I recalled the agony of being entangled. If it weren't for Chichi biting it off, I probably would have been strangled to death in less than 3 minutes. In other words, 3 minutes to kill a monster. Is this the monster of the world? It seems. The little boy I knocked unconscious with a mop was still too young to have his true power fully realized. With Jing's strength, I finally understood why Yilin's neighborhood was deserted. It's because the monsters in this world possess such power. A monster of general level or higher could easily wipe out an entire city in a second. I couldn't let such a tragedy happen again before my eyes. I opened the door and ran out. Xiao Tian was startled and hurriedly asked, why are you going out now? To save people. Save as many as you can, I said, banging on the door next door. Wake up. Wake up. Xiao Tian gritted his teeth, cursing, damn Notre Dame, did you build that? I desperately pounded on the door, trying to wake the people inside. Xiao Tian's words echoed in my ears. I knew exactly what he meant, that he was being too saintly. But my 18 years of life experience and 12 years of schooling instilled in me the philosophy of helping others. Not a single book or sentence told me that refusing to help someone in distress was right. If this had happened elsewhere, I wouldn't even feel pity for the deceased. But I couldn't just stand by and watch these people die. This wasn't a novel or a TV drama. These were living, breathing human lives. I'd rather be called a saint than abandoned. The 24-character core socialist values etched into my bones. Xiao Tian didn't say anything more. This didn't mean he thought I was right. It just meant he understood that values weren't about right or wrong, but rather, once formed, it's hard to change. World changes too quickly. No one can transform from a normal person into a cold-blooded killer overnight. But one day, something will happen that leaves me bloodied and raw, forcing me to rediscover myself and the world, to be reborn through bloodshed. I took the first picture of the red-haired candy, but the room remained silent. I suddenly realized that, even if I could wake them, they couldn't break free of the red threads. Bang, bang, bang. A series of ethereal, crisp sounds spread through the air. I was startled. I saw the red threads begin to shatter, turning into countless points of fluorescent light. The sky was filled with red stars. If it weren't for this environment, I would have found it truly romantic and beautiful. They're all dead. Xiao Tian's gentle words made my heart sink. I leaned weakly against the wall and sighed deeply. The brilliance and demise of life can happen in an instant. It's not your fault. One of the people who had followed me gently patted my shoulder, softly comforting me. Xiao Tian sneered. He said, the help of ants only adds to the tragedy. He paused, then asked suspiciously, where did that monster go? Didn't you notice the commotion? This place is too suspicious. Let's retreat. I said nothing, just lowered my head and went back to my room to find something to eat. Chichi stood on a stool by the window, gazing at the countless red dots dancing in the night sky. His big eyes were filled with wonder and delight. Brother, look, what's that? It's so beautiful. I wanted to tell him, those are all human lives, but I opened my mouth and didn't say it. Even though he wasn't human, saying such things to such an innocent child was too cruel. I rubbed Chi-Chi's little head. Those are fireflies. Chi-Chi looked adorably blank. Are the fireflies tasty? I could and help but smile at his cuteness. Yes, I'll take you to eat some later. Now we have to leave. Chichi tilted his head and pouted. Why are we leaving again? I sighed. Because there are demons again. The monster has its eyes on us. I don't know if Chichi understood, but she just nodded obediently. Yiming also looked around warily. There was a strong demonic aura around the town, but we couldn't sense any monsters. We didn't linger and went downstairs to leave. As we passed the tightly closed doors, I felt a pang of panic because I knew that those rooms were full of corpses. Yiming's wake-up call relieved a lot of my stress, and we moved faster. Soon we reached the main room on the first floor. Just as I was about to open the door, I heard a commotion outside. Quite a few people had come tonight. A huge harvest. A huge harvest. I mean, look at them. They're all carrying big bags and small packages. This must be their entire fortune. Ha ha ha, so satisfying. Those city folks looked down on us with their cunning. But who would have thought that after working themselves to the bone their whole lives, their boats would end up in our hands? We split up and searched house by house. Let's see who's the fastest. Hey, old Wu. This is my territory. What are you doing here? Haha. Old Wu's been a bachelor for over 40 years. He just loves this kind of thing. We don't care, he'll search the valuables first. I was stunned. I was completely confused. Wasn't the whole village supposed to be dead? Then how come there were still voices? And judging from their conversation, they seemed to have ill intentions. But I didn't have time to think. A series of loud footsteps approached. Clearly someone was getting closer to the small house. I turned around and exchanged a glance with Yiming. Yiming understood and nodded. I pulled Chichi along and quickly crawled under a large table in the main room. The room was dark, and it was pitch black outside too. It's hard to notice the cobwebs under their table, unless you look closely. He looked unhappy, but I shushed him and said hide and seek. And he obediently stayed still, staring excitedly at the door. I peeked out to see where he was hiding, but his actions completely stunned me. He took 2 running steps, his long legs pushing off the wall by the door, and leaped into the air. A short blade appeared out of thin air in his hand, easily embedding itself in the concrete wall. Then, holding the blade in one hand and using the wall as a springboard, he hung steadily on the wall behind the door. No wonder he's a master. He is truly skilled. Just as he was on the wall, the door creaked open, and a beam of light shot in. I saw who it was, and my eyes widened in disbelief. It was the burly man who had led us to the town entrance. I was deeply moved by him. I overheard the conversation outside. This burly man seemed to be Old Wu. Old Wu swaggered in, flashlight in hand, his usual honest demeanor gone, replaced by eagerness and lewdness. He probably hadn't expected anyone to be alive in this bungalow. Without even checking, he rubbed his hands together and strode up to the second floor. TSK, TSK, my little darling, I've finally got him. I'm so drooling over those long white legs. I frowned. The long white legs Old Wu was talking about. Could it be Ming? Ming was on the wall behind Old Wu. Hearing his words, his expression turned strange. Old Wu rushed upstairs impatiently, his footsteps thumping, revealing his impatience. I quietly crawled out from under the table and winked at Ming. Ming also fell from the wall. He fell from a height of 3 meters, completely silent. I followed him upstairs, and sure enough, I saw Old Wu. He pushed open the door of our room, his dark face flushed with excitement. His eyes were burning as he stared at the bed, put the flashlight aside, and impatiently took off his shirt, revealing a belly piled high with layers of fat and tangled black chest hair. He roared and pounced on the bed. My precious little darling. Then his excited face suddenly froze, because he could feel the blanket under him flattened. His eyes widened, and he abruptly pulled back the blanket. Nobody there. Uffed. Although it's immoral to laugh out loud now, I just couldn't help it. Who Old Wu was startled. I scrambled out of bed in a panic, grabbed a flashlight, and shone it on the door. There I was, along with Yiming, and the grinning idiot. Old Wu saw the 3 of us, and his neck shrank back, as if he'd seen a ghost. How come you weren't soul-sucked? I muttered the word. Soul-sucking, he said. Looks like you know a lot. Before I could even ask any questions, Yiming's knife was at Old Wu's neck. Veins bulged on his pale forehead. What's going on here? He demanded. He was furious. He'd been hiding behind the door, completely bewildered. until he saw old Wu strip off his clothes and leap onto the bed. It wasn't until then that he realized what had happened, and he was furious. Luckily, he hadn't been strangled to death by the red thread. Otherwise, he would have died a terrible death. Please, don't kill me, Grandma. I'm just a farmer. I was truly bewitched by your beauty. I was blinded by greed. I beg you, please don't kill me. Old Wu felt a cold touch on his neck and trembled violently, screaming incoherently. I squatted down in front of him and demanded, "Stop screaming. You can't judge a book by its cover. I always thought you were a good person, and I was even touched. It seems you've been plotting against us from the beginning. Explain to me clearly. What's going on in this town?" Old Wu looks honest, but he's not stupid. His eyes darted around, and he tried to plead. "I really don't know anything. I just farm and do odd jobs, please." But before he could finish his wailing, it stopped abruptly. A sharp blade slit his throat with a light touch of a wrist, and tiny beads of blood slid out. Another person clearly knew what he was up to. "Keep yelling. You just want to lure people over, right? It's okay. As soon as I hear footsteps, you can immediately separate them. Don't worry, I'm very skilled at this. It won't hurt." The pain made Old Wu realize that the young couple in front of him were not ordinary. At least this tall woman was not ordinary. He became obedient, and cold sweat poured down his forehead. "Who are you guys? Which female college student from which university can handle a knife?" he thought. "You're really lucky. Even if you asked me to kill someone with a knife, I wouldn't dare. But you just happened to run into a female college student who's a celestial master." One person narrowed his eyes slightly, and before he even moved his hand, Old Wu hurriedly whispered, No. I'll tell you everything. I won't yell anymore. Take the knife away. There's a knife. I can't speak.